alternative talk radio. Get ready, America, for Deadline Live with your host, Jack Blood. Deadline Live is a daily wrap-up for those too busy in the daily grind to discern and dissect the news. While the so-called mainstream media buries the truth, Jack Blood uncovers it, exposing the lies that our trusted government officials do not want us to know. And now, please welcome Jack Blood.
Richard Gage, one of my good friends, and I think he has some of the best evidence out there. You know, a lot of people that I know that were a little skeptical of some of the things we brought up about 9/11, they'll look at something like Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and the light bulb goes off, and they go, oh, now I get it, because it's just so sobering, and it is so practical, and it's so professional. And Richard Gage has really, put his life on hold for years, along with these other 1,000 architects and engineers and all these other whistleblowers, in order to travel the world to get the information out about what might have happened in New York and what the government didn't tell us and how their story just totally doesn't add up. Richard Gage joins us from AE911truth.com. Thank you, Richard. Good to talk to you again.
Well, thank you, Jack. It's great to be with you on the show again. That's AE911truth.org, by the way.
I think I was thinking that and said the com, but...
it's automatic.
I got stung just as I said that by a wasp, so...
Ouch.
That was probably one of those predator wasps sent in by... oh, man, that hurts. Richard...
Ow.
What?
We need to get you some protection, Jack.
A couple of things here. Number one, your reaction to this big, giant story coming out of the Obama White House that they have done the deed. They've killed Osama bin Laden. Of course, all of this, as the last caller just mentioned, perfect timing for a failing political career, a campaign that the wheels are coming off, an economy that is completely crashing, a birth certificate issue that no one seemed to really buy. What was your take? Just take us back when you first heard this, Richard Gage, and this came across the television screen. Take us back to what you were thinking and what you've been figuring out since.
You mean 9 years ago, or just this week?
The pretend one, I guess, the one that the whole world is watching here from a few days back.
Yeah. Well, it's clear to us, the 1,500 architects and engineers that I represent, that have signed on to the petition demanding a new investigation of all 3 World Trade Center skyscraper collapses. We call them destruction as opposed to collapse, actually. That Osama bin Laden is not and cannot rationally be held responsible for the free-fall destruction of World Trade Center 7. That building is a 47-story skyscraper that collapses neatly, smoothly, suddenly, straight down into its own footprint at free-fall acceleration. And so we know that is an explosive controlled demolition. Every architect, engineer, and everybody else, just about, who has an open mind, recognizes.
Right. Well, part of having an open mind is part of having an open mind is even to acknowledge that Building 7 fell. That's sometimes a good start, isn't it, Richard?
That's why I opened up with it, because how can Osama or any other non-secure approved person get access into that building to plant those explosives? We're talking tons of explosives in that building and months of preparation work. So and that building had in it the CIA, the Department of Defense, the IRS, the Securities and Exchange Commission. It was a very, very secure building, one of the most secure outside of the Pentagon. So it's unlikely that Al-Qaeda had access. So Osama bin Laden's alleged murder here this week is irrelevant to the 1,500 architects.
That's what I was going to say. In a way, it is irrelevant, and the fact that any time you ever said, well, I'm really glad this happened, or I did it, the videos and the audio, whatever it is, it's very suspect. In fact, there was one audio interview where he denied any part of being 9/11, though I'm sure him being an intelligence asset before or after would have been happy to take the credit for it. It's a good fundraiser, so to speak, but he didn't really, and there isn't really any proof that he did. But that, again, is all irrelevant, because unless he planted bombs in those buildings and created a controlled demolition scenario, Richard Gage, it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. We're calling for an investigation of the building. First of all, we have, along with NIST, proven, despite their claim to the contrary, that this building came down with controlled demolition. And I say that because even Sham Sunder, the lead investigator, when they came out with their final report in November of 2008, they acknowledged, after having been forced to admit this free-fall destruction by members of AE 9/11 Truth, who showed them in public that indeed, they proved it, that it did come down by at free-fall acceleration. Sham Sunder actually acknowledged this publicly. They said, yes, for 100 feet of this fall, you're right, it came down at free fall acceleration, without acknowledging at all, in fact, saying publicly that it was consistent with their earlier computer models, which did not come down at free fall. So it's a lie. And everybody who listens to this and understands the concept of free fall, which is a free falling object has no resistance, whereas this building had 40,000 tons of structural steel resisting that free fall. In fact, it was designed to be 5 times stronger than it needed to be to do that job. And all of a sudden, every one of those 80 columns are given up all at once on each floor, synchronistically timed. That is the only way a building can fall at free fall. Can the few small fires or any fires do that to a building?
Yeah. Paul Craig Roberts is right. If they can get away with that right in front of all of us, I guess they think they can get away with anything, including rolling out a fake Osama bin Laden kill. You know what is, I guess, kind of linear in all of this to me and to many of my listeners, Richard Gage, is this fake bin Laden speech that Obama gave. I mean, he gives this speech, and then they finish the speech on national television, and then he pretends to come back out so that the photogs, the news media, can take pictures of him coming out to take the speech. So even that wasn't real. He reads off of teleprompters. Nothing he says is really real, at least coming from him. Then, of course, we were shown these videos, this classic picture of Hillary Clinton with her hand over her mouth gasping, and Obama sitting on the edge of his seat, and they're supposedly watching this whole takedown of Obama, and then it came out that was just a complete lie. Yesterday, Senator Scott Brown, the first Tea Party candidate, who's turned out to be a complete rhino, by the way, said, hey, look, I've seen the photos of dead bin Laden. Now just shut up. And it turns out that those photos were a hoax. They were fake, and that he was hoaxed somehow, and that nobody has actually seen any photos. But the way I kind of see this coming along in a linear fashion is that they can get away with this in the minds of a lot of American people. It kind of explains how they got away with 9/11, that people are just gullible and want to believe their government and their military and their media, Richard.
I'm one of them, Jack. 4 years ago, when let's go back 10 years almost. At 9/11's happening, I'm watching TV. I'm watching one plane hit, then another, and then coming to the awareness under a state of shock that we are under attack. We didn't know how bad the attack was. I'm on the other side of the country in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm still in shock. Imagine the people on the East Coast. And under this state, and watching these buildings with the incredible explosive nature, we've never seen a high-rise come down due to a gravitational collapse or due to fire.
Yeah.
So we don't know what it looks like. But so here's this major event with all of these explosions and flames and planes and media hype. and then we're looking for answers, and we'll take the first one that we get. And that's what I did, despite my eyes seeing a very explosive event, obviously hurling debris and pyroclastic-like clouds symmetrically, outward arching streamers, thick clouds of suspended pulverized concrete, 1,400-foot debris radius. This is what I'm watching.
But then, Richard, you didn't get to analyze these pictures till later. So you are an architect of great esteem, and you're watching this. And in the beginning, did it bother you? Did you have to go in and see it in slow motion and everything? But when you just saw it on TV, did it bother you watching the buildings come down? Did you know immediately that something was funny, or I guess were you kind of like I was, a little conditioned to go, wow, this is so shocking, this had just happened, that maybe you didn't question it right away? What was the process for you again, Richard? Because we've talked about this before. How long did it take, and what was it that you saw that you went, no way? There's just no way that what the government's telling us is true.
Well, what I'm telling you is that my rational faculties were suspended.
Right.
I had an innate trust in our government to tell us what the hell was going on. And yes, I felt something awkward, but there was no words in my mind like, maybe this isn't the way the government told us. Maybe this is explosions. I mean, I'm looking at an explosion. I'm hearing that from the experts that it's a gravitational collapse due to structural weakening because of the massive jet fuel fires. And what do I know about jet fuel, right, back then? What I know now is very differently, because 4 years later, for the first time, I heard an alternative explanation as to how these buildings came down, and it was from David Ray Griffin, who was interviewed on KPFA Free Speech Radio out here by Bonnie Faulkner in the Bay Area. And he is talking about the explosive testimony provided by 118 first responders orally. They interviewed 500 first responders on tape. What was your experience? The city of New York held this information from the people for until August of 2005, when the New York Court State of Appeals forced them to reveal this information. Only then do we find out that NIST had access to all these interviews, that there are 118 first responders talking about being blown around the buildings by all these explosions, hearing pop, 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 like a belt all around the buildings, all four sides of both buildings at the onset of destruction. This is extraordinary testimony, and yet it did not come to the light of day until August, when the New York Times won this lawsuit.
Richard, we're about to go to break. We're with Richard Gage from AE911truth.org. That link is at deadlinelive.info. Please check these guys out if you haven't already. And if you have, go back and resend this stuff, because this is all in the news right now. This is the perfect time to start getting this information back out when there was a kind of a little lull here in the American consciousness. We'll come right back more with Richard Gage. We'll talk about this NFL player who I guess has been going to your site, Richard, and gotten a lot of trouble with the Pro Sports Gladiatorial Services League to say what he really believed, that he didn't think a plane could bring down those buildings. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Headline Live.
Looking for great talk radio? You found it. This is the Oracle Broadcasting Network.